in 2019, of course, you made the big move down to the States to become the
Yes.
host of World Cafe. How did that all come together?
Well, the previous host of this show is a woman named Talia Schlanger. So she hosted it for 3 years between me and the original host, David Dye, who hosted it for many, many years. He was like the founding host of the show. Um, Talia was an acquaintance of mine. We knew each other. We actually both went to Ryerson, or I guess Metropolitan University now. We both worked at the CBC, like sort of around the same time. Um, and I was aware that she was down there, and I love the CBC, but I was starting to wonder, like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go next? Maybe if I want to spread my wings, because one thing in Canada is that the radio market is kind of small. Like it's sort of like once you get to a certain place, there are only a few options for where you can kind of go from there. Um, and she gave me a heads up that she was, thinking that they might be looking for a replacement host soon. And I just got my resume together and my demo and all that stuff, a bunch of, they call them scopes. So like you take all your breaks from a show, put them together in a file. I got all that stuff together and I sent it down to the program director here. And then I just kind of waited. And I mean, I don't know how many people they were actually talking to, but went through a couple interviews, sent some more stuff, did all that. And I came down for my final interview. And when I started this process, I was like, well, I don't know. Like Philly's pretty far. Like moving to the States, that's a big thing. Like, I don't know if I'm going to actually do this, if I get it. I probably won't get it. If even I do, maybe I won't move. And then as it got kind of closer and closer, and then I came down to visit and I actually saw the station and got to kind of be in here. I was like, oh, I really do want this. This is really cool. And so, yeah, it happened. I got the call and they said yes.
Awesome. Yeah. And, for those who maybe haven't checked out the show before or who aren't super familiar with it, what's kind of the format of World Cafe?
Sure. So on most stations, we are a syndicated show that is produced in Philadelphia. We're aired on over 300 stations in the States. Most of them carry 2 hours. So I'll tell you how that works. The first hour is usually an interview. Sometimes it might be a live recorded mini concert from a band. Or we have now and then contributors where we'll talk to them about an album or something that's going on. So that's the first chunk of the first hour. Sometimes it's the whole hour. Then the second hour, we call it the needle drop, and it's music. And a lot of the time it's a focus on new music. But sometimes there are themes. You will definitely hear like classic gold stuff, some deep cuts, kind of goes all over the place. But the focus, usually if you want to put a focus on it, it'll be like rock, folk, singer-songwriter, blues, kind of in that world. But we do branch out. There are lots of other things that make their way into the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you were mentioning the interviews, and I mean, I just seeing like who you've had the chance to speak with, I'm like so jealous because like you've had Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, Sting, like, I've had people associated with these guys, but never the real deal. And so like that's really cool that you had the real deal. Yeah, what have been some of the memorable interviews you've had on the show?
Well, I mean, those ones for sure. Weird Al was, I brought him up at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
But Weird Al gets a lot of mentions and whenever I talk to people about the show. But Weird Al was one, when you're a kid and you like an artist and then you grow up and you get to talk to them, it's like they're almost not real in a way. And getting to talk to him was really cool. And the thing that I really loved about it was that, Weird Al's music is not like something taken super seriously by like music scholars, right? But I took that interview so seriously and it ended up being really wonderful. And he's just a generous, funny, great guest. And that was probably like my favorite one I've ever done. It's up there for sure. Neil Young was one that I was extremely nervous about. I love Neil Young. And we had 90 minutes. And I was like, I think like my hands were so sweaty. I was like so nervous. And then we started talking and we're on Zoom. And after, 10 minutes, you just start having, it feels normal. Like you're having a conversation and it just settled in. And he was nice. Like he has, he's got kind of a reputation for like, being maybe a little crusty, but it's like he's actually not mad at you, the interviewer. He like gets mad at stuff in the world,
Yeah.
and then he'll like come back and like it's really he's a really fun person to talk to, and that was a great one. Um, yeah, I mean there have been so many. Brandy Carlisle, great interview, really fun guest. And then we have like all sorts of smaller artists all the time that like Sia Gray is an artist we just had on, who's from Toronto actually, who was like one of those ones where the music was just so cool, and I was like, "This is awesome." It feels like this is a person who's gonna get really big, and I'm seeing it right now in front of me, and it's just us in this room, and yeah, so you have like lots of really amazing experiences like that.
Now, how do you sort of prepare for an interview? Like, do you develop the questions yourself and all that?
So say I have an interview in like 2 days. It's been booked for a while, but because of the nature of things, like I don't necessarily start really prepping for it until a couple days before. I will sit down with the album or whatever the project is, and I listen to that, obviously. We have some interns who will prepare what we call prep files. So they'll gather a bunch of stuff from across the internet with like the basic information that we need, interviews that they can find. We have all like the lyrics and the bio information from the label. And then I'll go hunting too online and I'll try to find everything I can or watch what I need to watch. I like to watch interviews if I can just to get an idea of how they talk. Like, do they stop partway through a sentence and then finish it? Or do they like, do they go off? If you ask them one question, do they just go off on a tangent and then you have to like figure out a way to bring them back? That stuff is really helpful. So I'll try to consume as much as I can. And I make a question I just call it a document. And I start brainstorming questions. Our interviews are usually formatted in a certain way. So we'll have a song, talk, song, talk, song, and maybe two or three sections of talking, split up by songs. So sometimes I'll hook questions onto songs if I feel like we're talking about something about the making of the record, and there's a song that's a great example of that. I'll make sure that song goes there so I can ask them about that, and then like kind of ease us into that. But yeah, I mostly brainstorm as many questions as I can, try to figure out the major topics that we want to cover. And then I sit down with the producer and we go over it all and they help me kind of finesse it and put it in the right structure in the right order, make sure it all makes sense. They will, sometimes it's helpful because especially if it's a band that you're a really big fan of, it's really great to have another person there because they might not be a big fan. And then you realize when you're getting like too inside baseball or like
Yeah.
you're really, if you're like asking stuff that like, hey, nobody who's just casually listening to this is going to care or know what you're talking about.
For sure.
So that's one thing that I love to get perspective on. And yeah, we put it all together. I print it out or I have it on an iPad or if it's on a Zoom, it's open on my computer. And that's it. I try to go over it as much as I can beforehand so that I'm not so dependent on my notes. But I do script it pretty intensely just because that, for me, lets me go off script more easily because I know that I can come back if I'm like panicking or if something is like we go way off and I'm like, I need to remember what this detail was or where I wanted to go. It's there for me, but I try not to depend on it entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like, kind of continuing off on that, like what is sort of the process of putting an episode together, like from start to finish, I guess. Yeah.
I'm laughing only because it's like so weirdly complicated. So we book the interview. We do the interview. That happens first. There's a whole bunch of like technical engineering stuff that I'm not going to speak to because I'm not there for that part. But there's people who make sure it all sounds good and all that. Then that raw tape goes to my producer, the same one who helped me prep the interview. They will do the edit. They'll make sure it all sounds great. They'll take out anything that doesn't work or like makes it too long. Um, then when that edit is done, they send it back to me with like a document about what made it in and what pieces I need to now write and narrate around it. So an introduction, say we're coming out of a piece of the interview into a break. I'll do little outros, intros, stuff like that. So I write that. And then another person is scheduling the music for this show at the same time with our input. Like the host has some input on the music, of course, but there's somebody else who really does that because I just don't have the time to schedule it every day. And then I get that playlist also. That kind of, they get laid on top of each other. I go through the music I'm playing and get my notes together for that part, which is more of your traditional like radio DJ in between song stuff. And then once this whole script is done for a 2-hour show, I go down with my line producer and we record that. And then he makes sure that all sounds good and it gets sent out to our affiliates. That's like the shortened version. There's like little things that happen inside that are complicated that I won't totally get into, but that's basically the flow.
Yeah.